somebody, sweet Nancy, Jane, Williams, John, Lady, Brenda, Ass Man. Grandma Num Nums, I love that. T Boogie. This is about the death of the firstborn and all that we're going to learn. About the ultimate sacrifice of the firstborn, our precious things. Thank you, Preacher's Kid. Thanks for the shares, everybody. Dave, Greg, others. Adonai Yireh, the Lord who provides, did provide a way for us to enter in. Soprano saxophone by Don Davis. As we think about the sacrifice of the firstborn and all that means at Passover, and the sacrifice of Messiah, right? The death of what's precious is the season we're in. We come into this next section, see if you can hear the lyrics, because this is what I want to speak to you about today. It is the sacrifice we bring right now. Hey, Marcy. This is God's call to you instead of to Abraham. Are you listening?
Child of man, here I am. Please take your life, your dreams, all the things that you love. Child of man, here I am. Offer up your hopes, your fears, everything you hold so dear.
To you guys yesterday about the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, which is at the center of the Jewish prayer feast daily. And it's about this ultimate call of I surrender all, right? The Father surrendered his beloved, what he loved the most, I imagine, in all of time and eternity, his beloved Son, as the sacrifice, just as he he asked Abraham to bind the sacrifice of his son, right? And this is where we step into the drama this week of what was bound, the sacrifices bound in covenant for us. And this is our chance now to enter in
all to thee, my blessed Redeemer, I surrender all.
What a time of paradox, contrast, life, death, slavery, freedom, what is done for us in our powerlessness, and what we are called to do in the greatest sacrifice ever. Decided to call this scope the death of the precious. The call that Isaac received was to take his most precious thing, his son, that he longed for and yearned for, and bind that as the sacrifice to Adonai, the Lord who sees. Adonai Yireh, the one who would ultimately provide. And then we see that the Father, on the exact same day, at the 9th hour, when the Passover lambs were being slaughtered in Jerusalem, at exactly the same time when they slaughter the last Passover lamb, Yeshua of Nazareth was being crucified. And you know, it's called the crown sacrifice. He was crucified like this, right? Well, this is how they roasted the Passover lamb. This is my Trump hands. The Passover lamb was filleted and split open and roasted upright on a spit. That's the traditional way that the Jews were roasting that Passover lamb that they were supposed to eat, right? And they took the intestines of the lamb and wrapped it around its head as a crown. So for thousands of years, the Jewish people were roasting a lamb upright with its limbs spread left to right in the fire. And they're supposed to eat it all, right? And it has a crown over it. It's called the crown sacrifice. And this is the image of our Messiah going into the fire of affliction, dealing with the fire of hell for us. And because of that lamb and the blood on the doorposts, death passed over the Israelites, while the Egyptians were losing their arguably their most precious thing of all, the Pharaoh's godhood, their security in him, and their firstborn children, everything, right? And so the Passover becomes this picture of us hidden under the blood, hidden in the midst of the plague, hidden in the midst of the shaking, unable to offer anything other than simply our willingness to be covered, our willingness to hide under the blood. And you see this image, right? And then you see that that Messiah then, of course, becomes the blood for our salvation. So this is the second day of Passover, which is celebrated for 2 days because of the configuration of the full moon and making sure that they've got a kosher full moons around the earth for everyone, all the Jews in diaspora, to celebrate the Passover. And then tomorrow, as Passover is ending, many Christians are celebrating Good Friday. I believe Yeshua would have been crucified on a Thursday. If you look at the original week plan and when the days lined up with the lunar calendar, and so he would have had those 3 days and 3 nights. He would have celebrated the Passover with his family on the first night of Passover, and then he would have literally been taken out and crucified on that second night of Passover, to do everything in a totally kosher way, covering all the bases of Torah, filling it all in. And here we are in that season, and we have this glorious, glorious opportunity to step into the reality we have nothing to offer. We have nothing to offer him. We come in total humility and fragility. And is that not where we are now in the earth? We're in this fragile position, but covered and secure by this amazing, extravagant Passover sacrifice of the Lamb, the true Lamb, Messiah Yeshua. And that, my friends, becomes our call to the precious, to the precious things. The precious things. We all have precious things that are our beloved, that we've worked so hard to have, to get, to hold on to. And the Passover tells us that even our most precious dreams, the things we feel entitled to, the things that we feel God, promised us. Isaac was promised to Abraham. And the next thing you know, he's binding him as a sacrifice. God has promised you certain things. And in this extravagant hour of sacrifice and fragility, he's actually calling each one of us to lay our precious ones, our precious entitlements, our precious dreams, the things he told us we were going to have and do and be, and to lay them all down, to bind them as a sacrifice and surrender them utterly and say, I have no idea how my loss of the thing you promised me and told me and the thing I've desired so long, how that is going to be sustained through a death process of surrender. But that is the very paradox of the cross. That is the paradox that, sorry, I got people here who need work. We had a ceiling cave in almost in our dining room. Yeah, that's another story I'll tell you in just a minute. The paradox is that God has promised us certain things. He promised Isaac. He promised the salvation of the world, and he's promised you certain things. He's got dreams hidden in you, things bound up in you. And now at this knuckle cracking hour of loss and shaking, we mirror the heart of the Father by elaborately and extravagantly laying down our most precious things to him right now. Our most precious dreams, our desire to be married, our desire for children, our desires for our children, our callings, our relationships, our plans. It's all being shaken. And we respond in this hour by offering up the most precious things that we have in absolute surrender and saying, I nothing but Jesus. I surrender it all. Nothing but Yeshua. I must have nothing but him. It is the paradox of the hour that calls us into that utter vulnerability before God. Just as he was vulnerable in some way we can never understand with the sacrifice of his son. And Abraham was vulnerable as his dream, as the fulfillment of his dream is being laid out and ready for sacrifice. This is our response to the glorious cross. This is our response to the hiddenness and the protection of the Passover season, is our binding, our going and saying, yeah, even this, Lord, even this. And for some of us, it's the binding of our craving for safety, our craving for self-protection, our craving for the approval of men, our craving and our avoiding and our controlling behaviors to not deal with the things that God is calling us to deal with in this hour and go where he's called us to go. And so that's just something to think about as we step into our remembrance of Passover and our remembrance of our Passover lamb. And as we step into a time when we're in a second Passover and the plague is passing over us and lifting. I already heard good indications yesterday about national numbers right on Passover, that there was a shift. I have to follow that and see how that is borne out. But something is shifting. Something is changing. We are in the hour of our great deliverance, but this will mean greater responsibility for all of us because we are called now to go in and take a promised land. We are called now to go in and destroy the enemies of God. We are called now to receive his laws and understand healthy, godly, grace-filled self-government, right? And so all these things that we can brood on, it's a brooding time. It's a brooding time. It's a gloomy day here in New England with rain. And we went out and took I have this big, thick red ribbon. And I cut slices of the ribbon every year, and I nail it, one here on the doorpost on either side, and we have several entrances. So if you were to drive past our house right now, you would see slashes of red across our doorpost and down the sides of our house to say, as for me and my house, and this is what my husband says, we will serve the Lord. We are under his covering. We are under his protection, utterly fragile and utterly secure. And so we're getting ready to celebrate Pesach and clean the house and do all that. And yesterday, I look up, and the plague of the plumbing did not pass us by. There's cracks in the drywall, and there's drips coming down. And a few minutes later, my husband's got the drill and the bucket, and just water's just pouring in our dining room into this bucket. And it turned out there was a leak in a bathroom directly above the dining room, directly where we want to be ready for Passover and have this beautiful Seder. And it's pouring in. And today the plumber came with the power tools, and the whole dining room ceiling is ripped out. It's just ripped out, and it's opened up. So we got the plague of the plumbing. But the firstborn thing we're good on. Jesus, the firstborn sacrificed for us, the one and only beloved Son, right? We're good on that one, but the plumbing plague, I wasn't so protected against that one. But God is good. And I was so thankful that Dilly shared my son's video. Yes, we were all in it. The Ledoux family was in it, but my son, Jean-Marc Ledoux, the famous video producer and media guy, produced it. And you can follow him on United We Funny on YouTube. And we really are trying to figure out how to do a 70s thing, but it just hasn't hit yet. We're gonna keep thinking. In any event, I believe we're in the shift. We're right now in the pivot point. And this is our time to give extravagantly, to surrender our precious. What's your precious? What do you think that you're entitled to hold on to and protect? What's your precious? God can have everything but my precious. No, the paradox of the kingdom is he gives his precious for our freedom. And we give our precious, our most precious things to him in this hour, mirroring who he is. And believe it or not, that actually winds up taking us out of the slavery of the worship of our precious and the protection of our precious, and positions us to go into that promised land, which we will be talking about. So, my friends, you can anoint the doors with oil any old time you want, Grammy Pam. That's a good idea. Surrender extravagantly. That's right. What a beautiful time. What a mirror of the Father who gives his best, his absolute best for us. And in this hour, can we mirror and surrender our most precious and best to him, even though it really does scare us, at least just a little bit right now. So anyway, I will see you tomorrow, and we will talk about Good Friday, and we will talk about where we go from here and why it's all about being free from fear. When you're surrendered and you've surrendered your precious, there's something that breaks off. A lot of fear breaks off. All right, bless you guys. And as they say in Hebrew, Hag Sameach, which is the happy celebration of this season. Bless you all.